And joining us again tonight is Professor Tracey Brame, Associate Dean of Experiential Learning and Practice Preparation at Cooley Law School. Thank you again so much for being here with us to break this all down tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So the defense started this morning with 2 requests of the judge. Can you explain what those were and what they were looking for?
Absolutely. So the defense requested a mistrial and also or directed verdict. So for the mistrial, the defense was essentially asserting that the experts that the prosecution had called, it was inappropriate for the jury to consider their testimony because they were using outdated information about policy. They were talking about old versions of the taser, et cetera, so that it was inappropriate for the jury to consider that. And because the jury had already heard so much, could not unring the bell, the judge should call a mistrial. For the directed verdict, the defense was asserting that there's insufficient evidence to move forward. So even considering everything that the prosecution had put on, there's not enough evidence to move forward with trying Mr. Schurr, and so the judge should just call it. The judge denied both of those motions. Neither are uncommon, particularly the directed verdict. As you could see, the judge seemed pretty prepared for the motions, and she ruled rather expeditiously. But they're trying, the defense attorney has to try, because you never know what the judge is going to do. And they need to set themselves up for appeal if they lose. So they want to start to put their issues on the record for an appeal.
So after those denials, they then move forward, bringing their first witnesses up. We had 3 of the officers who responded to the scene that day come up. What was consistent about their testimony, and what value do you think that has?
So they were starting to lay the foundation for this kind of subjective aspect of what Officer Schurr was dealing with, right, during this incident. So they all came upon the scene shortly after the incident. So they talked about the fact that Officer Schurr was winded and he was spent, and that he looked like he had, maybe completed an Olympic event, just showing just how stressed and how much exertion, right, he had put forth trying to handle Mr. Loyola and handling that situation. So they're laying the groundwork for.
And then Captain Siver, current captain with the Grand Rapids Police Department, was called as an expert on policy and training specifically within the department. What was different about his opinion on Schurr's actions versus the experts we heard from yesterday?
So his opinion was very important, because here we had a Grand Rapids officer who is charged with training officers that testified that Officer Schurr's behavior was consistent with Grand Rapids policy, right, as contrasted with whatever policy the prosecution experts might have been talking about, and that a reasonable officer in a situation may very well have done what Officer Schurr did. And so it was really a direct contrast to the prosecution witnesses, again, from someone in Grand Rapids that kind of gave the jury a glimpse as to potentially what Officer Schurr had been trained to do in that situation.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting to see the direct opposition from those experts. And the prosecutor, again, only had about 15 minutes today before the recess to start cross-examination of Captain Siver. And you could tell his tone changed. What do you think he's trying to accomplish in his questioning now?
Well, I think it's in part because of that stark contrast with his witnesses, right? So he basically accused the officer that testified, Captain Siver, of testifying kind of contrary to Grand Rapids Department policy, and the question, because he said that it was not uncommon for Officer Schurr to chase on foot, right, to do this solo foot chase. And that was a big question. The prosecution experts said that one should not do that for various reasons. And Officer Siver said, no, that's not prohibited under our policy. And so the prosecutor really kind of took issue with that and wanted to get to the bottom of where that was found in the policy, and really kind of challenged him on it. It almost seemed like he was caught off guard by it, or didn't expect him to go that far to say, no, we trained them, right, to chase that way, because that's important to the case.
Definitely. And I think we'll likely see that sort of questioning continue into tomorrow. 5 witnesses have been called so far on the defense side. They have about a dozen in total, so that will resume again tomorrow morning. Tracey, thank you so much for being here with us again and for breaking this all down for us. You can stay with News 8 for continuing coverage of the Schurr trial from start to finish. We will monitor all the latest developments as they come into the newsroom, both on air and online in real time at woodtv.com.